so awareness and being the observer, is it the same thing? No. You are awareness. So let's take, for example, awareness and the brain. Okay, so awareness and the brain, how does that work? You're like, what's the difference? So your brain is a powerful tool. It measures, compares, and describes for you. Okay, and it helps you navigate life. Now, sight, sounds, emotions, memories, it's all a part of that. Okay, awareness is a way out of the mental noise. Okay, awareness pulls you out of mental noise. What is mental noise? Overthinking, anxiety, all these thoughts that come in. Everything is thought. Okay, so when you become aware of your thoughts, right? When you become aware, like you can observe your thoughts. So in meditation, the goal is to observe your thoughts. It's not to stop thinking. A lot of people go, "Oh well, I'm supposed to not think." No, no, no. You're supposed to pull yourself out of your thoughts and observe your thoughts as they pass. Okay, and that is a greater state of awareness. When you become aware of your thoughts, you step back from identifying with them or becoming your thoughts, okay, or trying to identify so much with your thoughts that you think you are your thoughts. You're not your thoughts, okay? So, um, in other words, when you meditate, you can observe the thought, let it go. Observe the thought, let it go. And pretty soon, all of these thoughts are just like passing by, okay? And you're there observing. Okay, now observing and an awareness is a little bit different. We're gonna get to that slowly. Um, but you can't be fully aware of an idea and believe it to be true at the same time. Did you get that? You can't fully be aware of an idea and believe it to be true at the same time. Try it. You can't even imagine yourself not existing. Try that one. Okay. So that awareness alone gives you space and the power to observe rather than to become the thought. Okay. If this is a little woo-woo for you, I understand. I understand. But you see, what happens is the reason why this is important for my clients. I have professionals that have big jobs and they're responsible for people and they have heavy workloads and a lot of stress and anxiety. And the reason it's important to, you know, show them this or teach them this is because then they're not sucked into everything. They're not pulled into everything. Okay, so if you're suffering from anxiety, guilt, shame, all of that, okay, overthinking, procrastination, hesitation, all of these things, it's all a part of fear. It belongs to the fear category because the underlying current is fear. The underlying current is fear. Now, when you separate yourself, okay, when you become the observer, is it a little different than awareness? Yeah, it's small kind difference. Okay, a little bit of difference. But when you become the observer, you detach from the situation. Awareness is the ability to observe that detachment. Your true self is pure awareness. That's your true self. So I had situations where, I would have I was in very toxic work environments, very, very toxic. And these work environments were uh, toxic in the way that they would get to you. Things would get to you. You would start to think a certain way because a lot of what I did came from imagination. A lot of what I did I was doing comedy, in another very toxic work environment. I was creating commercials. I was doing things like that, radio and television commercials. So I would create, and because I created, I would be in my head a lot. Okay, and because I was in my head a lot, right? I was always, inventing new concepts, inventing new strategies, inventing new, for the comedy side. When I eventually did comedy, I was inventing comedy. How do you make this funny? How do you take this story and make it funny? So some of the things that I observed, during the day, right? So I observe things during the day. But how can I make this funny tomorrow? How can I illustrate this and tell this story and make this funny tomorrow? And that took a lot of imagination. Okay. So the toxic work environment, right? When you're used to thinking like that and you get in a toxic work environment, what happens? Well, sometimes your imagination plays into it. And then things are bigger than they are, or more toxic than they are, or more anything than they are, bigger than they are. Okay. So what was the solution? The solution is to separate reality from fantasy, to separate what's really going on from what you think is going on. And if you don't focus your mind on something, your mind will attack you. So I teach my executives to separate themselves from the situation, to become the observer. And as awareness, okay, being the observer is like being the witness. Okay, being able to observe the witness is awareness. That awareness gives you space and the power to observe rather than to become the thought. And because a belief is a thought you keep thinking, if you don't detach from the thought, if you don't let go of the thought, you start thinking about it. When you start thinking about it, what happens? It becomes a belief. If you think about it often enough, it becomes a belief. Your true self is pure awareness. Okay? It's not a thought. It doesn't need thoughts to see, hear, or feel. It simply is. Before any mental commentary begins, before you even tell yourself anything about it. Okay, thoughts are not aware of you. You are the awareness. You are the awareness that notices the thought. And as you keep observing, right? When you keep observing rather than reacting, okay, because some people are reactionary to their thoughts. Okay. It's like that dog, that gets hit by the stick all the time, right? Sometimes there's no stick and the dog is still like that when people come around. It's the same thing. It's reacting to life instead of being intentional with life. So, awareness is that ability. And if you're awareness and you're observing the observer, then who's doing the observing? That's another question. Okay, we're not going to get into that. That goes a little far off. But the brain, okay, your brain is just measuring, comparing, and describing things to you. Basically, that's what the brain does. It's not the mind. The mind is totally separate. And where does that come from? There is only the conscious, subconscious, and superconscious. That's it. That's all there is. Now, the superconscious we call God. Okay, so this is not, when people ask me, oh, Uncle, is God real? Yeah, God is very real. God is extremely real. Okay. And if you, partner with God, or if you become a co-creator with God, that means you are intentionally creating things. How does that happen? It happens through your subconscious that communicates with the superconscious. All day long, 24/7. You're creating whether you believe it or not. You don't have to believe in it. This is not something you believe in. So when they say manifestation, it's a fancy way of saying I accomplished a goal, basically. So if you write things down, it goes into your subconscious. When you speak things, it goes into your subconscious. The awareness comes from the meditation part. Affirmations, meditation, vocalization, and visualization. When you do the meditation part for 5 minutes a day, 5 to 10 minutes a day, that's all you need. But when you do it, you can observe these thoughts and you don't attach to them. You allow them to pass. A lot of people are under the misconception that if you meditate, you know, good morning, Jay. Good morning, Iris. A lot of people are under the misconception that, oh, when I meditate, I'm not supposed to think. I'm not supposed to have any thoughts. No, you're not supposed to be attached to your thoughts. You observe your thoughts as they go by. This thought comes, allow it to leave. Next thought comes, allow it to leave. Next thought comes, allow it to leave. When you form beliefs out of your thoughts, that means you have attached yourself to the thought enough that you keep thinking the thought over and over. And a belief is a thought you keep thinking. Now you believe the thought. Now you've identified with the thought. Now you've done this with the thought. You've joined with the thought. And sometimes it's just a fear-based thought. It has no basis in reality. It just comes from your imagination. How does that work? Well, if you hear the news about something, all of a sudden in your imagination, you have your own version of what might happen. If you allow that thought to pass and choose a better thought, okay, think a better thought, or say no, or say stop, and stop those thoughts, okay? And when you can observe these thoughts just going by in meditation, or let's say stillness, let's say sitting still, closing your eyes, sitting still, and allowing the thoughts to pass, just like that. Awareness is the way out of the mental noise. When you get older, you're going to be able to do it no matter what. You know, when you get older, somebody can be talking right next to you and you shut out the mental noise. Married men know this very well. I'm joking about that, but yeah. So your true self is pure awareness. Thoughts are not aware of you. You're aware of your thoughts. Now, as you keep observing rather than reacting, what happens? Well, if you don't react, you don't perform an action. If you don't perform an action, there's no consequence. If you allow it to pass. You ever see a real self-disciplined person? They don't engage. What are the rules of engagement? Well, the rules of engagement tell you that if somebody says something and you say something else, now you've engaged. Now, energetically, you're like this. You've engaged. If somebody performs an action and you perform a reaction to that action, now you've engaged. Like this. Energetically, you have engaged. You can engage in thought. You can engage physically. And you can engage energetically. And when you are energetically bound to something, it's like this. And then you need to break it. You need to let go. As you keep observing rather than reacting, your mind settles. Lao Tzu, the founder of Taoism, said, "Muddy water, let still, clears." It clears. So who you thought you were, your opinions, fears, desires, starts to soften. It becomes less solid, less serious. You begin to experience life directly, not filtered through judgment or resistance. Judgment. When you can observe something without judgment, it's a very different world. Resistance. What is resistance? When you stop going like this, like that. Resistance is the only thing that keeps you from your goodness, from your blessings. Your blessings are trying to come to you like this. We always say this, right? But the resistance is here. Push, push, push. Work hard, work hard, work hard. Push, 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 push. You can work long without working hard. You can work efficiently without working hard. Working hard is, yeah, it's an energy. It implies an energy, but it's from plantation mentality. It's from factory mentality. It's from the Industrial Revolution. It's from a long, long time ago. Technology is enabling working smarter, working more efficiently. So, what's the result? A quieter, peaceful mind. Where do you get trauma from? Trauma is an emotional event that happened that is so big, you keep revisiting it. I work with a lot of military people that have PTSD. And we take PTSD that's this big and we shrink it down to this big. Does it come back? Sometimes. But very less severe. Or let's say it another way, it's controllable. It's controllable. You can turn it off. Does fear come back? Yeah, fear comes back. It's about getting from the glass half empty to the glass half full. How fast can you do that? When I was learning this, I had to practice that. How fast can I flip it? And I'll share a story with you. So I had a manager at one point and we were doing shows. I was an entertainer. I had multiple careers. I still have multiple careers. I have ADHD, so my brain has to be kept busy. But I had multiple careers. And I had this big argument, right? And this big argument in the parking lot. And I had to walk maybe 200 yards up through a house and down into a party. And I had less than a minute. The walk took me less than a minute. And I was angry in the parking lot. And this was maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6, maybe 7 years into my training. My training of awareness. And from that parking lot, the time it took me less than a minute to walk through the house and down into the party, I had to switch mindsets. I had to go from the glass half empty to the glass half full. And by the time I walked into the party, it was a different mindset. So mindsets are important. Everything is mindset. If you observe rather than react, life changes. Okay, so how do the two differ? Awareness and observer, how do those two things differ? Well, awareness is the state of being conscious of something. Okay? It's spacious, silent, and formless. It doesn't do anything. It simply is. So when God, reveals himself to Moses in the Bible, he says, I am. I am that I am. He just is. It's the backdrop in which everything appears. So it's the backdrop of everything you observe. Your thoughts, sensations, emotions, everything in the world around you. So if you want to think of awareness like the sky, right? It's vast, it's open, it's untouched by the clouds. The clouds just pass through, right? The sky doesn't touch the clouds. The clouds are passing through. Those are your thoughts. Allow them to pass through instead of engaging with them, instead of acting upon them, instead of identifying with them. When you begin to identify with something, you're saying, I am that. And that could be emotional crisis, that could be emotional trauma, that could be anger, that could be happiness or joy. It depends, right? Okay. Now, the observer, what is the observer and how is it different from awareness? If you're the observer, observing. Being the observer means that when you use that awareness to actively notice what's going on, okay, without judgment, without saying, oh, this is like that, or that's like that, or that's like that. Okay, so the observer, or when you are being an observer, you're not judging, you're just saying, oh, okay, I see that. It comes in real handy. You know, when you have an argument with somebody and they're like going off in front of you, you just switch to the observer. When you switch to the observer, it's like you're a movie camera. It's like you become a video camera. You're just watching a movie. And somebody can be going off in front of you, but it doesn't trigger you. So it's awareness in action, like a mirror that reflects everything but doesn't react. You just observe. Above that is awareness, because you are aware that you are observing. In other words, you can observe your thoughts without being pulled into it. Okay, you remember the other day we were talking about being attached, an attachment. When you're attached to something, when you're holding on to something, okay? And that's why it says when you love something, set it free, let it go. If it comes back, it's yours. If it doesn't, it wasn't meant to be in the first place. Becoming the observer takes discipline. It takes mental discipline. That's a dirty word, right? Like I hardly use that word, mental discipline. What does it mean? It just means you direct your focus. It doesn't mean that you dismiss what's in front of you. It doesn't mean that you discount what's in front of you. It means you acknowledge what's in front of you, but you're observing what's in front of you without judgment. You're observing what's in front of you without saying it's like this, it's like that, this is good, that's bad, this is good, that, like that, right? It is what it is. But it's observation. When I switch to observer, I'm looking at something going, this is interesting. This is interesting. Let's see what this is. Let's see what this person has to say or what this situation transpires into. I've had to do this a lot because I worked in very toxic work environments, very toxic. You can engage physically with anything. But when you observe, when you begin observing, becoming the observer, you have to pull yourself out. And you have to look back in, even if you're physically participating. Because human beings have that ability to observe themselves. Animals only have this one experience. That's all they have. That's all they get. But when you get that trigger, that gut reaction that makes you feel like you have to engage, it makes you feel. Okay, feel is the key word, feel. You don't have to engage. But it's turning off the switch. What's the fastest way to develop that? Affirmations, meditation, vocalization, visualization. Fastest way. Vocalization is probably the fastest, the way we do it anyway. The funny thing about one of my clients, right? One of my clients is an attorney. And one of my clients just had this revelation. The veil lifts, okay? What am I talking about? What veil? Well, we live in societal hypnosis, okay? Because you're pulled into this physical matrix. You know, you have to be a certain place on time, you have to do this, do that at your job, you have this responsibility, you have that responsibility, and you're pulled into this physical matrix. When you're not pulled into the physical matrix, what happens? Well, now you can think. When you are pulled into something from a gut reaction, you know, like that, like you can't help it. If you can't help it, something's wrong. If you can't help it, something has control over you. You don't have control over it. When you become this observer, you have control over it. You have control over everything. You have control over this one. This is what you need to have control over. You can't have control over anything out here. And the law of correspondence, the universal law of correspondence says that everything out here is a reflection of everything in here. So it's not your job to control anything out here. Everything out here responds to everything in here. When you adjust this one, right, you adjust everything. Because when this one is different, or let's say when you master this kind of restraint, martial arts people have this restraint. They know about it. They have to. They have to control it. But you have that switch, and you can flip that switch and observe. It's a disconnect. Disconnect from what? It's a disconnect from anything out here controlling you. But you have the switch and you have the control. Where's the switch? In here. That's where it is. So as you keep observing, rather than reacting, everything calms in here. The vocalization exercise that we do involves energy, frequency, vibration, and velocity. With velocity, everything clears. What am I talking about? Everything clears. Hi, Rosanna. Thank you. Thank you, Rosanna. Good morning. Aloha from Hawaii. Everything clears. It's a clearing. It's an energetic clearing. When this one clears, clarity is there. It's automatically there. It's your natural state. Your natural state is awareness. Your natural state is clarity. Your natural state is calm. We live in a world of stimulus. We're constantly being stimulated by everything. I used to have a job where I had to be stimulated. I had to work with a lot of energy for 4 hours at a time. Boom, 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 4 hours. After 4 hours, I was exhausted. After 4 hours, I had to go home and sleep. Sometimes I didn't get to sleep, but sometimes the majority of the time, I just had to sleep to get the energy back. Now, what happens when you get angry and you expel a lot of energy all at once? When you just, bam, push it out like that through your voice, what happens? You start to shake. What do we call that? We say, oh, so-and-so lost it. Oh, look at Bob, he lost it. Bob lost it. Or Laura lost it, right? Because they did lose it. What did they lose? They lost their energy. They pushed it all out of their body, all at once. And now there's an absence. There's an absence of whatever you call this, energy, soul, spirit, right? Because they threw it out and now they're shaking. And it takes them a little while to recover. And then they recover and then they're not shaking anymore. Then they're okay. So we have a term for it. We say they lost it. What did they lose? They lost their self control. They lost control over themselves. What was the result? They threw themselves out. They threw themselves out of their body. Now they need to recover. Everything is energy. Everything is energy. So to prevent that reaction, you clear this one. Very easy. Very easy to do. Affirmations, meditation, vocalization, visualization. So if you want to start with affirmations, just use a pen. Okay. I am so happy and grateful now that I am peaceful. There you go. Write that down. But you have to write it when you're peaceful in the morning. Okay, first thing in the morning. Read it out loud every night before you go to bed. When the brain is in theta state. We're going to cover brain states probably maybe tomorrow or Friday. We'll talk about brain states. We did that before. We'll do it again. Theta state is when you're relaxed. Okay, it's not deep sleep. It's just when you're waking up. Theta state. It happens right before bed, right when you wake up. And what happens during theta state is your subconscious is more responsive. So, if you talk about manifestation, it's subconscious. If you want to say it another way, so it's not so mystical or magical, it's not magic, it's your subconscious. Okay? Let's look at the tree again. Okay? So the roots of the tree are your subconscious beliefs, your core beliefs. You can call them core values. The trunk of the tree is your paradigm. Okay, how you see everything, the way you see the world, your opinions about stuff. Okay, and then your actions are based on your paradigm. So the fruits of the tree up here are your actions that get results. So if you want to change the results, you have to change the actions. You have to change, in order to change the actions, the trunk of the tree has to change. In order for that to change, you got to change the roots. How do you change the roots? Affirmations, meditation, vocalization, and visualization. It's very easy. My professionals do it all the time, but they do it every day as a practice because they're professionals, because that's what they do. They're responsible for people. This is my community service. I'm doing this for you. Okay? So, affirmations. I am so happy and grateful now that I am peaceful. Thank you. Always gratitude. Okay? And it's important, I guess, at this point to mention that you need a gratitude practice. Okay? A gratitude practice is just looking around the room, just looking around your neighborhood, just looking at things and saying thank you. You don't have to address it. You can say thank you, Jesus. You can say thank you, Allah. You can say thank you, Yahweh. You can say thank you, God. Thank you, Father God. Insert your belief there. But say thank you. And you'll see more things appearing, more things coming, more goodness. Because you will raise your vibration. So with these 4 pillars, right, you begin to raise your vibration. What happens? Well, you don't even see the people you used to see anymore. Because now you're on a different vibration. You meet new people. You have new experiences. Even in the same neighborhood, even in the same shopping centers, even in the same places that you always go. Pretty soon it's like, hey, what happened to so-and-so? They're not here anymore. Well, I haven't seen them in a long time. And occasionally you'll see them, right? But it won't be like before when you all congregate, when you all come together like that. Like attracts like. That's only one universal law. That's only one universal law. People of the same frequency gather. people of the same mindset. So alignment means you're aligning with different people with certain core alignments with yourself. Because you won't be able to hang with the other ones. It doesn't work that way. I've tried. It doesn't work that way. So when you have this alignment, what happens? Well, it produces good things. Or if you're aligning in the other direction, it produces bad things. People can align for good, people can align for bad, it doesn't matter. But like attracts like. So gratitude is important because gratitude will raise your vibration. Gratitude brings more. Okay? Generosity brings more. You want more money? Give money first. Whatever you want more of, give that first. You want more time? Give time first. Whatever you want more of, give it first. You know, a lot of people are of the mindset that, well, I'm going to wait till I get some first. Or some people think, like, I have nothing to give. Really? Give your time. Your time is the most precious commodity. Your time is the most valuable. You can't get back time. You can get back money. You can get back things. But you can't get back time. Give your time. Give your life. When you start to see that this, whatever you call this in here, you call it a spirit, you call it a soul, you call it energy, it's infinite. It's infinite. What does that mean? Well, you can't extinguish it. These get old, right? These get old. The body gets old. The body gets old. And then one day it'll fall down. That's it. What happens? What happens to your energy? Your soul, your spirit? It goes. Where does it go? Hopefully not to a human construct. Heaven, hell, those are human constructs. But Einstein told us that you can't extinguish it. And while we're on the topic of Einstein, he said, education will take you from A to Z, imagination will take you everywhere. And the reason he said that is because not enough people use their imagination. What happens when you don't use imagination? It's like a muscle. It atrophies or it gets weaker. It gets weak when you don't use it. A lot of people don't use it because they grow up, right? Remember when you're growing up, intermediate school? Oh, that's not cool anymore. I'm not going to imagine anymore. That's not cool. Psychologists tell us that if you retain your 9-year-old perspective, you pretty much have life beat, right? And then you look around you and you go, oh my God, this workplace I'm in never gets better than the elementary school playground, right? It's the same thing. They're just larger versions of the kids we went to school with. They're just older. Same stuff, right? Same tendencies, same game, right? But anyway, I'm joking about that. But what I'm saying is, you have to retain your imagination. Because you have to imagine yourself there, wherever there is for you. You know, I always say when I put my name in a browser, right? I see everything I was fantasizing about when I was 12 years old. Everything. Everything. So what does that tell us? That tells us that your life path unfolds from in here. It unfolds, okay? It projects out, not the other way around. Life happens for you. It's happening for you in your best interest. And when there's doubt and fear, what happens? This unfolding starts to slow down and in some cases stops. Does it start up again? Yeah, that's the good news. When? When you change your emotions, when you change your mind, when you change your thinking, then it starts going again like that. Okay? Or you can look at it like a tide. The tide comes in, money comes. The tide goes out, money goes. Observe the way you feel when money's going out. And observe the way you feel, okay, emotions, when money is coming in. You're going to notice that when you're happy, okay, when you're satisfied, satisfaction is the very bare minimum of the feeling good emotions. Satisfaction. It only gets better from there, okay? But you're going to observe that when money was coming in, you were happy. You know, some people think about it like they go, well, I was happy because money was coming in. No. Money came in because you were happy. But if you keep it going, right? When money slows down, because money is an energy, it will slow down. And money backs up. You ever see people live small? You ever see people live so small that they deny themselves a good life in the name of money? And they stockpile all this money in the bank. But they deny themselves a good life. When you begin to notice your emotions, when money is coming in and when money is going out, and when you begin to go, oh, money's starting to slow down now, it's that season, or it's that time of the month where money's slowing down now. That's when you give money. That's when you make an extra effort to be happy. That's when you're watering the garden. And then money comes back. Okay? Money will come back better when you do those things. But if you focus on money going out, and now you're miserable because money's going out, and now you're in a bad mood because money's going out, you know, and now you kick the dog because money ran out, right? Okay, we've all been there. We've all been there. Okay? But that's the time that you change your mindset. That's the time you go glass half full, glass half empty, glass half full, glass half empty, glass half full. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Always. It's perception. When you change your perception, things change. All you have to do is change, just switch it around. Reframe and refocus. Okay? Reframing means to take something that looks bad and reframe it as something good. Or let's say it another way. There's always two sides of something. Look at the good side. Find the good side. You know, when something bad happens, look for the good part. Look for the benefit. You know, well, my laptop got left in the rain and now my laptop doesn't work. Or you can look at it like, wow, now I can get a new laptop. There you go. You see? So there's a good and bad side to everything. Okay? So remember what I said about the dividing line, the 50 percentile. Okay? Now, this is positive. This is negative. All you need to do is push this 1% over. Now, the majority of your life is positive. 51%. Now you have 49% here. You have 51% here. Very easy to do, 1%. If you're trying to be 80% positive, good luck. That's a chore. That's a lot of work. This doesn't require a lot of work. Your natural state is happiness. Your natural state, without any influence from any exterior source, is happiness. Your natural state. It's how you were made. It's how you were designed. So when we talk about the conscious, the subconscious, and superconscious, and that's all there is, that's how we were designed as humans. But there's a lot of entities out there that will make you feel less than. Your job, your boss. Some people's bosses, not all bosses are like that. I've had good bosses. A long time ago, I used to do corporate work. I had good bosses, and I had bosses that were overbearing. Bosses that like to boss. Okay. There's all kinds of people. And these bosses that like to boss are good teachers. They teach you. So you have to reframe that. When I had a really crappy boss, I thought he was a crappy boss. Only because he picked on me all the time. I saw it like that. Until my mentor said, no, you have to look at it the other way. He's teaching you. I'm like, what do you mean he's teaching me? He's picking on me. He said, no, he's teaching you. And I didn't get it until I resigned from that position. When I resigned from that position, everything that he was jumping on me about, I began using in my own companies. The same philosophy he taught me, I used in my own companies. The same procedures, the same way we treated clients, the same way he was teaching me these things, or let's say jumping on my back about it, started working for my companies. The same principles, same philosophy I learned from him. But when I worked for him, I thought he was a bad boss. I thought he always picked on me. No, he was making sure that I did every single thing the way he wanted it done. And then, when I started my companies, and I'm like, oh, wow, yeah, I learned this. I learned this from him. And then the next thing happened, and the next company happened, and I go, wow, I'm sure glad I learned this from him, right? So sometimes what we perceive to be, somebody crappy, is somebody teaching us. And we have to have a willingness to learn and the ability to reframe and the ability to observe. And when it starts to show up in our lives, we can say thank you. Because at that point, it begins to work for us. When in the beginning we felt, emotion, felt it was working against us. Again, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And when they start working for you, you're going to be very grateful. Very, very grateful. Was I grateful when I was going through what I considered boot camp? No. I was wondering, why me? Why is he picking on me? Why is he always doing this to me? Why is this always happening to me? Right? But after I learned all these things and absorbed all these things, and I started putting them to work for me, in my companies, for me, for my people, for the people that I hired, for the people that worked for me, I was like, wow. I was grateful for that guy. So there's always two sides of everything. And it's important sometimes that we flip it from half empty to half full as fast as you can. And the difference between success and failure sometimes is your ability to see how fast you can switch that. Because it's not easy in the beginning. It's not easy. But after a while, it gets easier. My clients in the beginning, they have a tough time switching their perspective, right? But that one client I was talking about, the attorney, now she looks around her workplace and everything has a different definition. Because the veil is lifted and now you can see. And that's why on our letterhead we say, opening eyes, hearts, and minds since 2010. And that's why we only get 5-star reviews. It's not a flex, it's a fact. But the reason we only get 5-star reviews is because I work with humans. Everybody responds the same way. Because they're human beings. Because there's nothing greater than being human in this life. You were given that blessing to be human. Not an animal, not a dog, not a cat. They only have that one experience. They cannot observe themselves. Does it work against us? Yeah. With negative self-talk, when we begin to judge ourselves. And this is why you need to observe without judgment. Because when you observe without judgment, you don't judge yourself. You just observe, you go, that's interesting. No judgment. When you judge others, your subconscious is not aware that you're judging someone else or you're judging yourself. It doesn't know the difference. It doesn't know fantasy from reality. It doesn't know if you're getting a check or you're getting paid or a bill. It doesn't know if your money's going in or money's going out when you get a bill. When you're swearing at somebody, it doesn't know if you're swearing at yourself or somebody else. And this is why awareness is important. This is why a greater sense of awareness is important. A greater sense of awareness is important because then you're not judging yourself. God does not punish. God never punishes. If you're in a church or you're in a synagogue or you're in a place of worship where you're worshiping God and they're telling you that God punishes, okay, you're in the wrong place. God does not punish. We do. This one punishes. This one. Depending on the way this is, it will punish. Subconsciously. Without you even being fully aware. Okay, aware. That's why we're talking about awareness today. Aware. Sometimes we're not even aware that what we're cursing someone else with, and I don't mean swearing, I mean cursing someone with, is actually happening to us because it's going in our subconscious. Because we're thinking it, we're speaking it, we're writing it. And now we begin to own it. Why? Because we have a subconscious. There is only the conscious, subconscious, and superconscious. This is why do unto others as you want others to do unto you. That's why. God doesn't have to judge. God is not a judge. God is love. God is that pure awareness that you are a part of. So God doesn't punish. Just remember that. We do. Okay? And every time you think something strong enough, let's say with emotion, let's say with conviction, okay, you begin to believe it. So, what are you thinking of yourself? What are you thinking of others? What you think of someone else, you think of yourself. What you judge someone else, you judge yourself because you have a subconscious. Guard your thoughts. Don't judge. Judge not, and ye shall not be judged. This is not church. This is facts. This is subconscious training. When you start to judge, guess what happens? It turns on you. You begin to judge yourself through your subconscious. The subconscious communicates with the superconscious, and they're all located in here. The superconscious is a higher state of awareness, higher self, whatever you want to call it, God, source, all of that. But that's why it happens. So that's why the do unto others as you want others to do unto you. Because when you do unto others like that, you do unto yourself automatic. Automatic. 365 days, 24/7. Automatic. Okay, so thank you so much, Rosanna. Thank you, Jay. And thank you, Wormy. Thank you, guys. Take care. We're going to say goodbye to our international feed, which is TikTok, YouTube, Trovo in Europe, and also Twitch. Goodbye and aloha from Hawaii. We'll see you tomorrow morning.